welcome to all of you wherever you may be watching. This is Politics Today live on Channels Television. I am Sean Okimale in Abuja. Our eyes are still on the day the ballot will be officially open and when Nigerians will have the window in getting into the heart of the election of 2023 and select the persons who will be leading this country in the National Assembly and at the presidential level. And that is going to be on the 25th of February 2023. It's now 31 days before the election day. Now we are gradually getting into the thick of things 1 month before the election. So tonight, I'm asking you again to get your PVC. Use the opportunity and make your votes count. So let's tell you that the National Assembly has asked that the Central Bank of Nigeria, the CBN, to extend the deadline for the expiration of old 200 naira, 500 and 1,000 naira notes by 6 months. The House of Reps members and the Senate made a demand at the separate seat in Abuja. The Green Chamber, a member in the Green Chamber of the House, Honorable Sada Soli, says that for the policy to be successful, it must not be overbearing on the citizens. The lawmakers expressed concern that businesses are already rejecting the old currencies, where banks are complaining of shortage of the new notes. Well, the calls by the legislators appear not to be working at all. The CBN insists that it won't change. Today, at the end of the monetary policy meeting in Abuja, the CBN governor says that the Apex Bank's January 31st, 2023 deadline for the validity of those notes, 200 naira, 500 and 1,000 naira notes, remains. Take a listen to him.
I must say here that unfortunately I don't have good news for those who feel that we should shift the deadline. My apologies. The reason is because, just like the president had said on more than 2 occasions, and even to people privately, that for us 90 days, in fact, we feel it's 100 days is enough for anybody who has money or the old currency to deposit it, the money in the banks. And we took every measure to ensure that all the banks were open or remain still open to receive all old currencies. 100 days, we believe, is more than adequate.
All right, you heard the CBN governors given the stance of the central bank. But I'll allow you to listen to what the lawmakers said today.
If on 31st January, this currency what do you call it, swap, is going to be stopped and the old currency is going to be more or less a tissue paper, definitely we have a lot to lose, especially in the Northeast sub-region and Borno State in particular.
Somebody is not giving us the full story or the full picture. Is it the banks that are not telling us the truth and are hoarding the money? Or is it CBN that is actually not familiar with what has gone out and what hasn't gone out?
Thank you so much indeed, everyone. So tonight, it's a different kind of program. Today, we're doing a policy analysis of the manifestos. Now, for those of you who have not made up your mind on who to vote for, and those of you who are thinking, some of these frontline political parties and the candidates, what do they really have to offer? What they are promising Nigerians are embedded in their manifestos. And a lot of the time, they will say, hold us on to our manifesto. And tonight, we're breaking down what they have written in their manifesto. And we took 3 of the top frontline political parties and their candidates. Atiku Abubakar of the PDP, Bola Tinubu of the APC, Peter Obi of the Labour Party. We've done an extensive work in collaboration with Civic Hive and Budget. And the lead partner of that organization will be joining alongside Channels Television's election consultant and political analyst. Tonight, we'll break it down for you. And one important thing is, for you, average Nigerian, who are going to vote, to make your decision after we have done all these analyses just for you. Before I introduce my guests and get into the analysis, I'll allow you to check out some of your stories, some political roundup.
President Muhammadu Buhari is spending his second working visit in Lagos, and today he has commissioned the Blue Rail Line, which is from Marina to Mile 2 in Lagos State. The president, alongside Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu of Lagos and his deputy, Obafemi Hamzat, commissioned the project at the Marina train station in the state. The president also witnessed the signing of the commencement of the Phase 2 of the project from Mile 2 to Okokomaiko. The People's Democratic Party presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar says he is bound to fulfill all the promises he has made to Nigerians if elected president. He stated this at the PDP presidential campaign rally in Asaba, the Delta State capital. Mr. Abubakar says the plans he has outlined in his recovery agenda will address many challenges that Nigeria is faced with. APC presidential candidate Bola Tinubu is promising to reinvigorate the education sector if elected president. He was speaking at the Umuahia Township Stadium at the party's rally in Abia State. Senator Tinubu says the frustration of Nigerian youth is further heightened by the uncertainty of the education sector, where students stay in school studying for a 4-year course. He enjoys Abians and the people of the Southeast to vote APC all the way in order to enjoy a renewed hope. The Court of Appeal, sitting in Makurdi, the Benue State capital, has nullified the All Progressives Congress governorship primary election conducted on the 28th of May 2022, with an order to conduct a rerun primary election in 11 local government areas of the state. Justice Biobele Abraham Georgewell, in a lead judgment of the 3-man panel, upheld the rerun primary election held in 12 local government areas on the 9th of June, but nullified the May 28th primary election, which is described as a charade. And this has left the appellant, Professor Taremba Shija, questioning the judgment. Reacting to the judgment, the Director General of the Shija Campaign Organization questions the outcome, asking why the main election, described as a charade, will be nullified and the rerun of 9th of June, a byproduct of the nullified election, is allowed to stand. The APC governorship candidate, Reverend Father Hyacinth Alia, in a press conference, calls for calm as he awaits the party decision on the new development.
From the judgment that was read today, you will see it very clearly that it was just like getting something out of nothing.
The newly reinstated Ogun State governorship candidate of the African Democratic Congress, Mr. Biyi Otegbeye, by the Court of Appeal, sitting in Ibadan, the Oyo State capital, is appealing to his supporters to remain together and work in unity to ensure victory for the party in this year's election. Addressing party supporters in Abeokuta on the outcome of the appellate court in Ibadan, which reinstated him alongside 26 members of the party for the State House of Assembly election.
We are going to provide qualitative education with emphasis on STEM, that is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
The former Northeast Zonal Secretary of the New Nigeria People's Party, Mr. Babayo Liman, has been explaining reasons for his defection from the NNPP to the People's Democratic Party. He says the NNPP has no structure to win elections at the forthcoming presidential and governorship elections.
The NNPP doesn't have a structure. I was nominated based on consensus.
And from the Southeast, a former chieftain of the People's Democratic Party in Imo State, Professor Protus Uzoma, has defected from the People's Democratic Party to the Labour Party in Imo State. Addressing Labour Party supporters in Isu local government area of Imo State shortly after his official declaration as a member of the Labour Party, Professor Uzoma says the Labour Party's presidential candidate, Peter Obi, amongst all the contestants, is the only candidate that has the credential to save Nigeria from its current economic challenges.
Thank you so much, everyone. When you see me move to this part of the set, you know that is real business. So let's get to it, everyone. So 3 of the major frontline political party candidates, that is Atiku Abubakar, Bola Tinubu of the APC, and Peter Obi of the Labour Party, we are going to be dissecting their manifestos tonight. What do they really mean in the promises they made in the document they presented to Nigerians? And tonight, Civic Hive and Budget, our partner here at Channels Television, have put together, they've done an intensive work on those manifestos, broken them down, and we're going to bring them to you tonight. I'm being joined by the co-founder and the director at Budget and Civic Hive, Mr. Sean Onigbinde. Thank you so much indeed. It's good to see you.
It's a pleasure.
Right here in Abuja.
Thank you so much.
Is that what I'm saying? I'm connected with you in New York or in Lagos?
Yeah.
I'll see you physically today. Thank you so much. Yeah. And I have Channels Television election consultant and political analyst, Mr. Jide Ojo. Thank you so much indeed for coming tonight.
My pleasure.
Yeah, you're back again, so we're back here.
Exactly.
So tonight, it's about the policies.
Yeah.
What they say they're going to do. So the question is, why are the manifestos important anyways? Yeah, I mean, want to ask. We've seen in the past where people have denied their manifestos.
Yeah. But I mean, I want to commend Civic Hive and Budget, and of course, not leaving behind Channels TV for this innovative idea of breaking down the manifesto. Manifestos are in 2 ways, you know. There is a party manifesto for PDP, for APC, for all the 18 registered political parties. But the one that we are examining tonight are those of political parties candidates, the presidential candidates. And the good thing about this is it can be denied because this is an official document. So this is not something somebody said at the podium or at the soapbox or at a town hall meeting, which can say, oh, it's a freedom slip. You know, I really didn't mean that. It is believed that whatever are in those documents that we are examining today are what has been perused carefully by the principals. I know they are not the ones that wrote it themselves. They possibly constituted committees to do that for it. But they can't deny that. And we know, as a matter of fact, 1 out of these 3 are likely going to emerge in the next 1 month as our next president, if the election hold as scheduled. Yeah. So it's very important because manifesto is actually your barometer.
Absolutely.
It's the barometer through which you measure the intendment,
the roadmap,
the blueprint,
yeah,
of
what you intend to do.
What you intend to do. How do you want to move us from point A to point B, from consumption to production, or whatever it is, you know, because we are getting new phrases and all of that. Apologies. I mean, that one has been banded sufficiently enough for me to remember. But it's important to pay attention because this is civic education, this is voter education. 93.4 million registered voters. The last time I was there, we were examining those figures. They need to be properly guided.
Absolutely.
As to when or in the next 1 month, they will be making their choices in those cubicles between them and their God, voting their consciences that they are making the right choice.
Absolutely.
That is deliberate choice that they are making, and it's not influenced. That they have actually become accustomed, they've read through this manifesto, they believe in the agenda, because the other way, the common one for candidates are called the agenda, you know, 7-point agenda, 5-point agenda, and all of those agenda. But the most important thing is that this is going to help us in tracking their performances or the performance of whoever emerges. I've been involved in Osun and Ekiti State in tracking the performances of the incumbent governors who just came on board in the course of 2022. And this is from gender perspective. So this also will help because with this manifesto, you are able to see in finer details, in greater details, how they intend to govern.
Absolutely. And I mean, in other climes, you can only judge someone based on what they want to do, their vision. And there's someone who is not alien to drafting manifesto, and it's this guy that we're going to start with.
Yeah.
I guess, in fact, he was the first to release the manifesto.
Yes, he released it way ahead of even the forwarders, because he came forward and said, this is my covenant with Nigerians.
Yeah.
And I think some of the challenge, and he was rehashing some of the challenges beautifully. And I think it's still the same personality that he tried to project, pro-business guy.
So this is his philosophy, Sean. This is what you guys found out.
Yeah. He wants to run a lean government. He wants to be pro-business. He wants to be private sector driven. And I think he has a huge, strong focus on national unity. And you see that in his manifesto. There's also a big point on SMEs. I know he's been speaking heavily about $10 billion. He wants to create that kind of fund to support small businesses, because he believes that is the way to transform things significantly. There's also a big push on jobs. He tried to build this paradigm of we're going to invest in education, we're going to invest in technical education, vocational education, and he also wants to do STEM. So that's the kind of philosophy of what we're saying. But if you look overall, he believes that the government does too much. He wants the private sector to take it.
Are you surprised that Atiku Abubakar has a lean government, pro-business, private sector driven perspective or plan, considering the fact that he was formerly in government? He knows he was a former vice president for 8 years. So he understands that perhaps one of the major problems of Nigeria is the cost of governance, isn't it?
Well, not necessarily. For me, I would look at him coming up with this philosophy from the point of view of a successful businessman that he is. He has his, he's a business octopus, if I can be permitted to use that word. You know, he has his fingers in, you know, he has factories, he has real estate, he has education. One of the foremost private universities.
Perhaps maritime.
The maritime sector, in the maritime domain. So it's been a success. I mean, he's made no secret about it that he has a very successful both national and international business.
He has also been criticized for that, because when he talks about private sector and how he's going to, what he's going to do with the NNPC, what he's going to do with a whole lot of government investment, and what he's going to do about it, you know, and people have criticized him about that. But let's look at the strength and weakness, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it on the strength, you will see that it's data-driven. I think of the three manifestos, he tried to put a lot of data and quantifiable targets about this is what it is, this is what I want to do. Some of those data might be off the scale. You might not be able to say this is my possible, but I think that's where I feel good out there. He stood on the issues and he set some targets. Because there were a lot of manifestos where he saw a lot of buzzwords. And I think it put his manifesto on what he called the USEED, which is unity, security, education, economy, and devolution of powers. That comes about restructure. So there are also big points around restructuring in his manifesto. Weaknesses has to do with target, and what we'll see across all board. You know, setting a target that we want to double our GDP per capita in 7 years. That sounds like a very huge accomplishment. Even it took China over 2 decades to be able even to make an attempt at something like that. So for him to make a decision like that, if he look at the numbers, well, he's promising almost a 13% growth if we're going to make that kind of target by 2020.
Almost impossible, isn't it?
Yeah, almost. We've been doing maybe 7 at our best times.
Maybe he has a magic wand that he hopes to use in that.
Yeah.
And the fact that this is not the first time we are hearing 10 million people, getting 10 million people out of poverty. It seems that the big guys in Nigeria are sat on the same table, they're on the same WhatsApp group, and they're using the same figures and saying, this is 10 million people. It does look to me. But so the Buhari government has said 10 million people.
For me, I really don't know why they are parroting this 10 million. Because even if they are able to lift 10 million out of over 200 million Nigerians, that still pays to insignificance. You can't have, it's going to be like a drop in the ocean. And then you have this flip-flop. I remember that the incumbent administration, the outgoing administration, will want to say, oh, you know what, I created so many jobs in the agricultural value chain, anchor borrowers program, and then the support to SMS, small and medium enterprises and all of that. But on the flip side, you ask yourself, how many has been lost in the course of gaining. So if you gain 1 million and you lost 3 million, and you are looking at only the credit, and you are not looking at the debits, you have not gained anything. Because if many businesses shut down in the course of those 7 years, and all you could just point to are the ones that you recruited, like this administration is counting 774,000 local government 3 months social work as part of employment. That's not employment, that's underemployment. These are social workers that were just recruited for 3 months, pay 20,000 naira each, and they are off the labor market, and then they are back into the unemployment market in a quarter.
There is one thing that is very important. So when we criticize and talk about the issues of security, and say, oh, who has the best ideas in the area of security? This is what Atiku Abubakar said he's going to do in terms of the recruitment of police officers. He says 1 million police officers. So the question is, I mean, in a country that has a huge debt profile and paying so much to service debt, how many percent are we spending to service debt?
We are doing already 80%.
So is this feasible? So this is why you say it's one of the weaknesses.
It's a challenge because he wants to decentralize the policing system. He was clear about that. But in the same time, in the same vein, you still want to take policing system for around 350 to like 50,000 to 350,000 to 1 million. And I think that's where one of the challenges, like the lack of incoherence or lack of clarity. If we want to decentralize, put the burden on the states, put the burden on the local government.
And that means restructuring.
And that means restructuring, which is the big point he's been making. You know, but hiring 1 million policemen at the same time talking about structure just sounds like there's a contradiction there.
Let's look at it. The economy, show. Break down what Atiku means in this area.
I mean, to raise GDP per capita to $5,000 by 2030, we are somewhere around 2,000. And we've declined even significantly over the years. Don't forget that if your population growth rate is higher than your GDP growth rate, that means your GDP per capita is falling. That means the standard and quality of living is falling. And so, and we say that we have to grow around 13% to hit that number. I mean, consistently over a 7-year period. Or you want to raise manufacturing to 30% of GDP. You also made that point. Our contribution of manufacturing is around 12.9% currently. So the magic you want to do to double manufacturing output within a period of 2 years, even put it there. No, a bit of challenge I feel with this manifesto is that it seems maybe what was written in 2019 was brought forward to 2023, and there were no significant adjustment when you look at the numbers.
So part of what we were talking about earlier, the issue of foreign direct investment. And it's interesting that some of these ideas, so you ask yourself, he has very lofty ideas, but in terms of putting on a scale of reality, how realistic are these ideas?
Some are, like the GDP of 2.5% of our GDP, $10 billion, that's approximately $10 billion. That's not impossible. So 2011, 2012, we're doing around $9 billion. Egypt has done around 14 billion, did 14 billion last year. $15 billion. So it's not impossible. If we prime our economy and we posture as a safe haven for investment, we can do that.
3 million new jobs per year, 3 times 4, he will have done 12 million if he's able to achieve it. And that's going to lift 10 million people out of poverty. That 10 million out of poverty will take us away from the corridor of being one of the poorest people with the poorest people on earth, isn't it?
It's going to do. Don't forget that the recent NBS says we have 133 million people in multi-dimensional poverty. So take 10 million out of that. And don't forget that a lot of young kids are coming into the bracket also.
Like Jide said, it's going to be a drop in the ocean.
Yeah, so there's a need for something huge, something bold.
Something drastic.
Yeah, and I don't.
But can you really do anything drastic with government in the global economy that we're seeing today? When big economies like the United States are experiencing inflation, the UK, for example, is experiencing inflation like they've not seen in a lot of years.
You can, and I think the philosophy is where we go back to. The private sector has to be the engine of growth. Governments typically are inefficient allocators of capital. You know, and that's when you could analyze the Anchor Borrowers Program, you could analyze a whole lot of incentives and projects that government. There's always an element of abuse and corruption that you see that capital gets suboptimal at the end of the day.
Joe, I'm very much interested. Jida, I'm coming to you. So I wanted to have a holistic picture. So target of 10,000 megawatt of transmission. Peter Obitu has a very lofty idea about power generation, transmission and generation. Does this solve our problem in any way? What Atiku is saying?
It makes sense. We are already around 18,000 in terms of embedded and total generation capacity. Problem is that we don't have the gas infrastructure. We don't have the incentive system to really move from even what we have that we can generate in terms of capacity. So transmission capacity is still around peak transmission, around 5,200. So if it doubles that, he didn't put a time, they say in the short term. So we don't know what that means.
That's very vague.
Maybe 4 years. But it looks like we will move there. And I think it's still in tandem with what we're doing with the Siemens project, even though they didn't specifically reference that. Peter Obi did that. And also refinery. So refining to 2 million barrels. Well, Dangote is doing 650. Bua is building 200,000. We have a nameplate for the current refineries, even though we don't know what that will come out at the end of the day, maybe another 200. So we are around 1 million already. And I think 2 million looks out because are we going to refine everything we're producing now? There's no big talk around production because that's also a big problem.
This is still not very clear.
It's not very clear because you want to achieve 2 million barrels.
You know how long it took Dangote to finalize that refinery that is doing less than 1,000
650,000 barrels.
So now, this is, we're hoping how this is going to happen. So modern railways, it looks to me that a continuation of what Buhari government has started.
Yeah, but that's a lot of, because 157 kilometers, Lagos-Ibadan, costs $1.5 billion. Now, if you want to do 5,000, you might be looking somewhere around $40 billion. Where would that money come from? 70,000 kilometers of road network. The entire federal government, the entire road network, the federal government is 32,000.
Atiku said he's going to sell off some assets and see maybe he's going to plow the money in these.
So maybe that clarity has to come because 70,000.
Does it make economic sense though to spend a lot of money in these rail projects?
Yeah, because
at this time,
the ones we have currently, they are not generating enough revenues without piling them with diesel and
fantastic idea in terms of infrastructure, but economic sense,
it's not there. And if you're decentralizing and you have 32,000 kilometers and you now want to go to 70,000, I still struggle with that coherence.
Let's move quickly. Human capital development.
It's big, and I like this fact that it focused on SME. It focused on the fact that education at the federal level needs to be about design, formulation, and thinking. There's also a big talk around out-of-school children and supporting states to do that. There's a lot of conversation on health in the hands of private sector. I also want to believe that health is a public issue. So how he wants to build that balance. And I think his thinking around the private sector driving everything also influenced his decision on healthcare. But he also wants to stop medical tourism. And I think, and this is where I talked about expanding the healthcare professionals to work from the home front. But I think this is also something he's put at his human capital challenges. He wants to have an open apprenticeship program. He wants to run technical colleges. He wants to have a National Research Innovation Council. He wants to set up an SME venture capital, like we mentioned, 10 billion.
So he's talking about jackpot syndrome here.
Yeah.
He wants to reverse the brain drain. But I don't know if you... those Nigerians who went to Saudi Arabia, went to the UK, and if you go to the Texas region of the United States, you find more Nigerian medical doctors than any other citizen across the world. Yeah. So what will be the incentive to make them jackpada, like my boss would say?
Investment. He has to do investment, and there has to be incentives around it. And I think when people want to travel, it's the macroeconomy has to be set. If inflation is eating away value, if insecurity is the challenge, then people would look even beyond whatever you're putting on the table for them. Yeah. And I think security.
Yeah.
I struggle.
Did he get it right? I mean, how good are his ideas?
I don't think he got it perfectly right because, banditry, kidnapping, things like that, and also even building trust with communities and things like that. It was there, but I don't think he addressed the issues around intelligence. How you want to also build community trust.
Which is
key. And also state policing, which is an advocate of devolution of power. He could have said more. But that's, I feel, in terms of security, I think his part was relatively weak in terms of what he could have done. Maybe he doesn't want to say much, but I think it could have been better. Yeah. But if we look at this, there are big positions on social protection, something I didn't understand, that he wants to move us from 3.1% of GDP to 7%. If find out too huge, because 7% of GDP is around spending $35 billion. Do we have that money to spend on social protection? And also, he talked about SME plan. They were given special fiscal breaks. His ideas are brilliant when you look at SME. I think it's seen that the engine, when he talks about business and talk private sector, he wants to incite the...
All right. Let's wrap up quickly. We are due for a break. And we still have two other political parties. Show, if you describe Atiku Abubakar, I mean, this is probably the most experienced person when it comes to drafting a presidential manifesto. If you have to describe it in one sentence, based on the document that is given to Nigeria, how would you describe it?
In one sentence, I would say he's a candidate that's focused on incentivizing the private sector to drive the economy forward.
Looks like an idea that could work for a Nigeria of today.
Yeah.
But how realistic, though?
No, there are other factors you have to put in play when you're looking at a candidate.
All right. Sure. Quickly, Jide, we need to run to break, but lead us to break with your comment generally.
I think, I've read it better than none. He's a serial contestant. He's been there. I think this is 6th attempt, and at every turn he's been churning out manifesto. It may not be there, but what I see is good intentions, and we need to celebrate that good intention, however imperfect it is. But politicians campaign in poetry. They deliver in prose.
We'll move with the speed of light now, within remaining time that we have on our hands, to deal with the Bola Tinubu manifesto and that of Peter Obi of the Labour Party. Seun Igbinde, founder and co-founder and director of Civic Hive and Budget, is with me. Thank you so much indeed, Seun. And Jide Ojo, China Television's election consultant and political analyst. Thank you so much, Jide. It's good to see you again. So let's get to it. This is Bola Tinubu, the presidential candidate of the APC. It does look to me, comparing the philosophy of Atiku and Bola Tinubu, they look like opposite each other in terms of ideology and philosophy.
The similarities about industrialization, SME, I think the major opposition, the conflict here is that Bola Tinubu postures as we have to spend before we can engineer growth. And that spending, there are no limits to that spending in some sort of way. And if you read his past articles, he's been clear about the fact that the only way to actually trigger growth is to get government to spend. And he also talked about consumer credit systems. And if you listen also to his NESG presentation, some snippets out of that I read, he said that we need to spend to a point where we can generate a 10% growth in the economy. So this will be a spending government. You know.
So the question is, where would the money come from?
In the current government, where has the money come from? It's come from where we
borrowing.
So where support.
Those who have,
it's also borrowing. Ways and means.
Ways and means that a lot of people are criticizing. And so you look at the strength. You said the candidate has huge focus on industrialization, strengthening regional hubs, scaling growth, and also investment in human capital. That looks a very good one.
Yeah, it looks good. I mean, I feel like in terms of comprehensiveness of manifesto, it were comprehensive. But the problem is that when you look at the underlying fiscal, framework, which is that it wants, because there's a line that says, much like the European Union has done, we must realistically and legislatively suspend the limits of government spending during this protracted moment. There's a big about that. We cannot continue to tie our spending to revenue because our revenue is small, and it will take time before it can match the kind of developmental needs that we have. Now, there are going to be consequences for that. Inflation will be a consequence of that. Because if we're printing a lot of naira and we don't have the commensurate dollar on the other side, there's an oversupply of naira, there's a short demand of dollars, currency valuation will also be a problem. You might also, if you're not careful, it might be difficult to attract investment in that kind of regime if you have exchange rate volatility. So how he wants to balance all of his lofty ambitions and ideas in a situation where you know that there will be inflation. That's what I don't know.
The economic school of thought of spending your way out of trouble has its own consequence. And whether or not, when you are very much deep and when you have all of your major economic indices in double digit, it's yet to be seen how that pans out in the nearest future. Because you will have borrowed a lot of money, you have gotten into a lot of debt, but how you are going to engineer the economy to get you the necessary result is a whole lot. Let's look further on what Tinubu has. He said, he's going to reduce youth unemployment by half in 4 years. So if you look at summarily, what he's tending to is very similar to what Atiku also was targeting 10 million.
Yep, he's trying to reduce unemployment, and well, let's see how that goes. He's also trying to take us to 10% GDP growth. You know, the same Atiku might not have put it clearly about it, but he's moving us from GDP per capita from 2,000 to 5,000 is a lot. There's a huge point on national infrastructure. I think he wants to continue in the mode of President Buhari, spend big on infrastructure. And I think they've overemphasized that. There's also a thing about zero-based budgeting and all that. And I think there's also a big point, if you take on the next slide, around the fact that expanding federal roads and expressway, the federal government claims around 13,000 kilometers has been rehabilitated built. Does he want to match that? The challenge with this document is that there are not enough quantifiable commitments, you know, to say where do you want to put us.
Similar to Atiku too.
Atiku even did a little bit better.
But he didn't do as much.
He didn't do as much. And we'll see the same thing when we look at Peter Obi's too. Yeah. You know, you want people to say, I've looked at the reality of the economy. I've looked at the reality of my fiscal capability. This is where I can push things.
In 2 years, this is what I want to achieve. In 4 years, so they just blank jackets and...
There's so many buzzwords. And I think it speaks of good intention, but you also have to ground it in reality.
Generate, transmit, and distribute sufficient electricity. That looks like what anybody...
There's really no quantifiable statistics as to how many megawatts. We saw with Atiku the megawatts. It may not be realistic, but at least we saw the figures. And you know, this era is data driven. This is the time we should be high on statistics, on what is and what ought to be. How do you move from point A to point B? But this is much more like rhetorics of, you know...
There's so much more on the issue of infrastructure.
But like you said, and it's shocking that for the current party, he didn't do enough work even mentioning the Siemens project. The other two candidates in some way.
So there's a bit of a disconnect between what the Buhari government is doing, because I mean, by the end of this year, the Siemens project would have seen the output of whatever they are working on.
So I worry about that. And also oil production to move us to 4 million barrels by 2030, that's huge. Because we know that for a growth of that nature, around 2.2 to 4 million, you will need to do deep water projects.
It's simply very unrealistic, to say the least. I mean, that's not beyond chance.
This is something that he said he was being institute a pilot student loan regime, give student loans for them to go to school, you know.
It's good. I think I said it, spending, credit. He wants to run a credit economy. And if you even hear about the solutions to fighting corruption, it's been big about when people don't need all money to buy stuff at the same time, maybe the incentive for corruption would reduce. For state policing, I think he avoided a lot of issues. For example, on unifying the exchange rates, Atiku was clear, Obi was very, very clear. He was not too clear about that. On issue of state policing too, there wasn't a clear point to say, state policing will happen. Maybe he would have mentioned that this policing needs to change. But you have things like we say we have 3-tier of policing system. And I figured out maybe he's just being more careful as a person.
All right. So, I mean, Tinubu for you, Jide, in summary.
Well, again, very good intention. We see how this goes. But I think there should be a connect between APC as a party, manifesto, and the candidates' manifesto. There should be synergy, there should be sync in the manifesto. And then continuity. Are we seeing continuity in the implementation of ongoing projects, for instance, of Buhari administration, in the event of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu winning the presidency in the next 1 month? Would there be continuity, or there will be the linkage, or there will be disconnect? This is very important, because one thing I give credit to Buhari administration is that despite the fact that it's a different political party, coming in 2015, he, as much as possible, tried to complete extant projects since 2015.
On the ground, like the Abuja Railway. So let's go to Peter Obi quickly now. He's of the Labour Party. This is his philosophy, Sheon. Quickly.
Yeah, it's a popular alternative. And I think everybody did a lot of work on the context of where we're working to. He did a lot of that. He also put things around technology, so because he is appealing to the young and the youthful people. He had this big praise from consumption to production, and he really broke that down to some level. I think he would have done much more better. But I feel that if you look at his manifesto, it was clear about the fact that you could anchor. He's the only person that went deeply on cost of governance.
Okay, and he's been big on that, though.
Yeah, he's been big on that, and I think that's his key strength. He talked about production and
how he's going to achieve that, because there are a lot of agencies of government, there are a lot of activities of government that are backed by laws. So how you are able to, snuff life out of those activities just by executive powers is left to be seen. A lot of lawsuits might emerge. Political capital. Absolutely.
Yeah, but I think the depth of it is that we worry about the political capital. But you mentioned your own SIA report that he wants to bring that to the table. Everybody says that, but it looks like the political capital, it just wanes along the way, because you're shifting a whole lot of agents. You're likely closing down, you're merging, you're rationalizing.
So he mentioned Siemens.
Yeah, he mentioned the power deal. He spoke that. He mentioned that also at Chatham House. He also spoke about he wants to build a solar power revolution. Almost at 10,000 mini grids, which are solar power.
We have sample of how that's been done over, in some part of the world.
Yeah, there are samples. There are places where you are able to build some form of embedded power systems, where in a small community you build a solar mini grid.
And Nigeria has a natural endowment to be able to achieve that.
Yeah, we don't need to wait for all the central power.
It's weakness. It's taking as a whole. The policy document could have been better. You said that.
Yeah, the numerical element is weak. And for someone who's been big on data, I don't know why he drew back.
And you say he lacks clarity.
There were some parts where you felt that. So, for example, you talk about minimum wage when you're talking about hourly labor wage, when you're talking about security. There is a big disconnect in that kind of situation. Right. But if you look at him, like on security, he's talking about policing reform. Then we start from there, a 3-tier policing reform. So what I like about his manifesto is clarity to some extent on issues that are very, very contentious. I mean, it's clear that he wants to run a 3-tier policing reform. He's also able to connect the justice system to the policing system. I didn't see that across board. That to say that we need to build a fair and a much more robust justice system if policing will be effective.
Economy. It drew attention of a lot of people in the area of economy.
Yeah, he wants to build an agro cluster and an industrial cluster and across geopolitical zones. And I think that is good because those agglomerations can scale things. Right. Manufacturing is there. This is the economy also. In terms of fiscal direction, Oron SIA report, he wants to consolidate agencies. And he also wants to discontinue subsidies. So there's a big point about there's waste in government. I want to tighten things. Industrialization, big on the fact that national certification for blue-collar assistance and reworking the whole STEM field. And also, he talked about the SMEs, incentives for them. He's also good on the SMEs. And I think if everybody is talking, everyone a bit grounded on industrialization, on SMEs, and I think Bola Tinubu and Peter Obi effectively did what we love well, industrialization.
So, I mean, if you're to give it to him, infrastructure, it looks to me that there is a bit of a research of understanding what the present government is doing and how he hopes to integrate that. He's talking about mini grids. It looks to me that his trip to Egypt, he's bringing it to bear. But how realistic are all of these targets?
They are realistic as long as you allow the private sector to lead this conversation. Because whatever we've been doing for over the last 20, 30 years, maybe since I was born, the centralized grid system, it's not working. And I think Atiku also mentioned about the fact that he wants to build a transmission system that is privatized. But he's big on the fact that decentralization is what needs to happen. Let's build small mini grids around the country.
Insurance cover for 133 million people.
That's a bold one.
Have we seen this kind of thing work anywhere else?
He wants to put 15% of the budget into health, and that's bold. You know, because if you have a budget of 20 trillion, and you want to do 15% of that, that's around 3 trillion health budget, for around 5 to 6%. And you know, the fiscal adjustment you need to make for that is evident. And also do a lot of massive engineering to create jobs, to grow incomes. Like I said, one would expect more data in this document. But I think it gave us his philosophy. He clearly expounded his ideology.
But I see a lot of vagueness
around quantifiable targets.
So if you had to describe Peter Obi, okay, you've described him. Let me ask Jide to describe him. From what you've seen of Peter Obi, you've talked about Tinubu, talked about Atiku. How would you describe Peter Obi's vision generally?
Well, it brings a fresh perspective, and what I foresee is that with the best of intention, let me go a bit political here, this is his manifesto. But assuming without considering that he becomes a president without a support base in National Assembly, he's talking of submission of executive bills and all of that. Just imagine if APC retained the leadership of Senate, House of Reps, lost the presidency, then you have a president like he ruled in Anambra. You know, the majority of the State House of Assembly were PDP, and he was ABGA, but he was able to get things done. But you know, at the national level, it may not be that easy.
That political side of things
exactly.
needs to be
the political side of it has to be envisaged. Because no matter what you want to do, this manifesto cannot be run. You can't run presidency as a sole administrator. So you need the synergy of the three arms of government and three tiers of government to get things done.
Thank you so much, Sheol. We're totally out of time. But one thing that is clear, Jide, Sheol, we've laid it in front of Nigerians. Your team have worked hard on some of these. But I promise you, you'll find some of these on the channelstv.com, on our website. You'll be able to peruse and be able to make decisions for yourself. Don't worry. We're staying on these issues and this manifesto. Watch out on these stations. Thank you so much in this show for coming.
So pleasure.
I appreciate it. Jide, thanks so much for coming.
My pleasure too.
Well, that's our show for tonight, everyone. I hope you have a nice time on today's edition. I'll see you tomorrow at 7 p.m. I'm Sean Akimale. God bless Nigeria.